lot of people have been talking noise about the Big Red. When Raiola slings it, you get on your feet, and I want 4 quarters of smash mouth football!
Welcome, Husker fans. Thank you for tuning in to Big Red Radio, the Husker Talk Show. Today, we are going to be previewing the Cincinnati game. I am your host, Caleb Jenneret. Next to me, as always, is my co-host, Zach Jenneret. Make sure you like, subscribe, visit all the socials in the description, and make sure you comment down below your score prediction for this game. But before we get into it, Zach, how you doing?
Good. Ready to go for tomorrow's game. I think it's going to be a good one. All around, I think we're going to see a lot of what we want to see. It's really going to set the tone for, whether or not our expectations for this year are really possibly going to hit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, it's pretty similar to the Colorado game. Not as, there's a lot of different factors that play into the Colorado game with the rivalry and stuff, but you have an opponent that if you want to get to the next level, if you want to get to the level that you want to be at, maybe even as soon as this year, you need to beat these teams. This cannot be a game in question. And I'm excited to see how it goes. But as I said, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, hit the bell so you never miss an episode. But getting into the game, Vegas odds as of Wednesday night when we're recording this, Nebraska is favored currently by 6.5 points with a total of 52.5. So Vegas predicting a 30-23 win for Nebraska. We got some coaching matchups. Scott Satterfield got hired in the same offseason as Matt Rule. Since then, he hasn't played any Big Ten or SEC teams, but has a combined record of 8-16, 4-14 in Big 12 play with 0 bowl appearances, going 3-9 in his first year and 5-7 last year. And then Matt Rule, obviously, as we know, 12-13 in Nebraska, 6-12 in Big Ten play, along with last year's bowl win, the first for Nebraska in a long time. So we're going to go through the matchups, we're going to go through the X factors, and then we're going to do our prediction for the game. So I want to start at quarterback, mainly detailing Cincinnati's team because we already know a lot of Nebraska's team. Obviously, I think Nebraska has the better quarterback in this game, but I think Brendan Sorsby can be dangerous. He's more of a runner, way more of a runner. He's big. I think he's 6'2", 235, something like that. He likes to run. He doesn't have the arm talent anywhere near Dylan Raiola, but he's way more athletic. So that's definitely a question mark, especially with our D-line, which we'll get to. Just brand new. So I'm excited to see how that looks. Do you have any issues? Not any issues, but are you worried about Brendan Sorsby at all going into this game?
Yeah, I think the only thing is you look at, bringing back to the Colorado game from last year, obviously played a very mobile quarterback in Shedeur, and then in the Illinois game playing a very mobile quarterback in Luke Altmaier, right? And so those games obviously looked very different as far as like if we got to the quarterback and how often, right? It seemed like Shedeur was getting hit every play. Seems like we couldn't get to the quarterback very much against Illinois with Luke Altmaier last year. I think the biggest difference was, against Colorado, really like set the edge, right? And so you have those guys like not really rushing super hard off the edge, like they're kind of there to contain so that he only has one way to run, and that's backwards. And then your pressure needs to come up the middle with your D tackles, your linebackers on the blitzes. That's why that 3-3-5 defense was really, really nice because you could send some really odd blitzes up the middle, but then you also see kind of the downfall of it of not being able to pressure the quarterback as much when you get into that game against Illinois. And so I think, having a mobile quarterback to play against with a young D-line, I mean, you got to figure out how to set the edge and then also just come up the middle for all your pressure.
Yeah, definitely. And as this goes on, as we detail all these position groups, you're going to kind of notice a theme. I'm not super impressed with Cincinnati. I know what we're getting a lot from media is, this is a veteran team. This is going to be a tough team. They started 5-2 last year. But what they forget to mention is they lost 5 straight to end the year. They got killed by K-State. They got killed by Colorado. I am not sold that this is a very good team. I know they went in the transfer portal, got a lot of things, but week 1 that may look a little shaky. I know Nebraska got a lot too, but they're also bringing back a ton as well. So We'll talk about it more, but that's just kind of the theme you're gonna see. So moving on to running back, I do favor Cincinnati's room just a bit in this matchup, just because of the depth and the proven commodities. Obviously, Nebraska has Emmett Johnson, who I think is the best running back out of everybody on the field. But I do. Cincinnati has two former Big Ten backs with Tawi Walker from Wisconsin and I'm blanking on his name, but he's from Ohio State and just didn't get a lot of playing time, obviously playing behind Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson as well. But Tawi Walker, they're both bowling ball type backs, no taller than 5'10", maybe over 200 pounds, but they're talented backs, so I would be a little worried about them. And then getting to receivers, I think Nebraska definitely has the more talented receiver group as a whole, with Dane Keene, Isaiah Hunter, and Ja'Cory Barney. As Cincinnati's receivers are, FCS transfers, or their best guy coming back, had just over 1,000 yards. But really, nothing to worry about there. The main worry would be their all Big 12 first team tight end, who can really cause some problems down the middle for Nebraska. But it all just goes back to Brendan Sorsby, who, late in the year last year, kind of didn't throw the ball very well, averaged less than 200 yards per game in that 5-game skid, like I talked about. So I'm interested to see what Cincinnati's passing game looks like with the receivers and the tight end, and if Nebraska can kind of neutralize that. Before we get to the O-line, is there anything in the skill positions that you wanted to mention as well?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it's kind of odd. Their biggest question marks kind of line up against our biggest question marks,
Yeah.
right? And so their biggest question mark is the receiver group, or kind of just like the receiving group, right? So throw that tight end in there because obviously he's a stud. But also they've got that transfer from Lindenwood, their receiver, who seems like he's grown a ton throughout college. I mean, went into Lindenwood as a freshman. I think as senior in high school, he was 5'10", 5'11". Now he's a sophomore, I think, maybe a junior. He's like 6'4", 6'5", maybe even taller than that. And so definitely a huge guy, but kind of runs a little odd from what I've seen. But, their receiving versus our secondary, right? I have a ton of respect for our secondary. I think they can be very good, but at the same time, you just never know, because there's a lot of unproven guys back there and a lot of unproven guys on their side of the ball.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I was kind of going to mention that for the O-line for Cincinnati. Their biggest question mark is their receivers and their O-line. They're replacing 4 to 5 starters from last year's first depth chart for their first game. They have one really good transfer, Cotton from South Dakota, who I know Michigan was in on a little bit, ended up going to Cincinnati, and I think he's going to be fine. What I'd watch for, a new offensive line, you kind of got to get that communication down. This is going to be like a 99% Nebraska crowd in what is known as the loudest stadium in the world. So I'd be looking out for false starts, looking out for miscommunication, stuff like that, which I think would help with one of our biggest question marks going into our D-line and going into Cincinnati's D-line. Cincinnati's D-line might be the best, I don't want to say position group, but they have the best player in this game, I think, with
I would say
Corleone.
It's definitely Cincinnati's best unit, I would say.
No, definitely Cincinnati's best unit. I don't know if I would go as far as saying they're the best unit, taking in both teams, but I do think it's the best player. Corleone could be a first-round draft pick next year, just a giant of a man, and he's going to eat up a lot in the middle. And I'm interested to see kind of how our O-line, which I think is strongest on the inside, so I like that, how our O-line plans to try to neutralize him. Because Dana Holgorsen said in his press conference earlier this week that, when he was at Houston, as the head coach at Houston a few years ago, Corleone was on Cincinnati and they played, and he said he just ruined an entire drive, like forced an entire 3-and-out just himself. So he's a stud. All-American type player. I'm interested to see how Nebraska can neutralize him. I will say, going over to Nebraska's D-line, how they match up, obviously the experience isn't there. The proven commodity is not there. But across the entire thing, I think the position group has more potential, with Noeri and Keona Davis, who just earned his black shirt today. Even I think Elijah Judy and Jalen George can get things done on the inside, Riley Van Poppel as well. I just think it's so deep in Cincinnati's. If you lose that top guy, it's done. But I don't want to disrespect him. I think he's very good, and I think he's going to cause some problems early. Staying on the defense, to the linebackers, nothing special for Cincinnati. They return 2 out of their 3 starters, high tackle guys, but not going to jump off the page at you. I think Nebraska's got them beat there. I'm excited to see what Deshaun McCullough can do. He's someone who I'm watching to make a lot of plays off the edge. And then getting to their DBs, this I think, and we'll get to our X factors as well, but this is where I think Nebraska can really take advantage of them. Cincinnati is starting 5 new starters in the defensive backs. No returning starters are back on this team. So I think if you're looking at Nebraska's receivers, who might be the best position group on the team for Nebraska, I think you can really take advantage of a group that allowed a lot of yards in their skid, going over 210 yards per game, to not the best passing QBs last year either. So I think this is going to be a real big mismatch. I think this is where Nebraska can really start out.
Yeah, I agree. The one guy on Cincinnati's defense I would look out for is Jake Golday, linebacker, second leading tackler for him last year. Big 12 honorable mention, coming back, redshirt senior. Just looks like, your usual linebacker. Looks like an Isaiah Gifford, John Bullock kind of guy back there. But, like you said, nothing crazy, right? I mean, you get Emmett Johnson on some one-on-ones out there. But I know that the Cincinnati coach was talking about it, and I think maybe our coaches touched on it a bit, that Cincinnati is going to have to play zone against us. And if you want to go back last year and watch Dylan Raiola play against zone, he eats it up, right? You go watch the Wisconsin game, they played a lot of zone. The UTEP game, they played a lot of zone. The games where they play a lot of man, right, is where we kind of struggled to throw the ball. But yeah, I heard an expression, Cincinnati's secondary is like Swiss cheese. And I think that's where you got to win the game, right? You have Dane Key, you have Isaiah Hunter, you have Ja'Cory Barney, you have some of the best receivers that you've had in a long time, as far as explosive wise. Then you've got, one of the best arm talents that you've had since, really, who knows?
Maybe
right?
ever.
Right. Really, who knows back there? Nebraska's top quarterbacks, yeah, you can go look at them, Eric Crouch, right? Tommy Frazier, Tommy Armstrong, even, put him in there. Taylor Martinez, right? But all those guys are run first, right? That's
right.
We haven't seen this amount of arm talent back there in a very, very long time. If you said if ever. And so, yeah, I mean that's where you got to win the game, right? Because you have one of the best D linemen in the country and some really good linebackers for Cincinnati on the defense. As much as I know, Nebraska wants to run the ball down people's throats, it's just not how you're going to win this game. You're going to have to open them up here. And the weakest place is that secondary for them.
Yeah, and then looking quickly at our secondary, I think it has a chance to be one of the best units on the team. You're obviously returning Sierra Wright, who's one of the best players on our defense, along with Deshaun Singleton at safety, who's going to make a big impact this year. Older guys like Marquise Buford and Malcolm Hartzog as well. Malcolm Hartzog led the team in interceptions, along with an all-conference transfer in Andrew Marshall. On top of that, I think this is going to be a really good secondary, and I'm really excited to see where they can do that. And then talking about special teams, just very quick, Cincinnati has the better kicker. They got a transfer from Charlotte who I don't think, missed a single field goal last year. But I'm also putting a lot of faith into Mike Eckler, who's one of the best special teams coordinators in the country, along with freshman punter Archie Wilson, who I think is going to have a big, hopefully he doesn't have that big of an impact, but if he does have to punt, I think it's going to be a big impact. And I think our kickers are going to be good enough with our new one, and then John Hull if he needs to come in as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it until we get to predictions. I do want to mention, as I said, Cincinnati started last year 5-2, losing 5 in a row to end it. Nebraska kind of had the same thing, started off really strong, struggled towards the end. The only difference is Cincinnati brought back the same exact staff, an offensive coordinator who led the 89th scoring offense, 55 passing, 36 rushing. But they also lost their star running back, Corey Kiner, to the NFL, replaced him with some guys, as I said, from the Big Ten. But they also brought back their DC, who led the 88th best rush defense, 73rd pass defense. A lot of that was just because it could have been even worse on pass if they weren't just getting blown out in those games late. During their 5-game skid, they allowed 32 points per game. As I said, over 210 yards per game. Not one of them had the arm talent Dylan Raiola has. So, yeah, as you can tell, I'm not very high on the Cincinnati team. And Nebraska last year, with a less talented roster, had a team in Colorado who destroyed Cincinnati, beat at halftime. So, obviously, that's not a one-to-one comparison, but I think it does make a big difference. So, do you have anything to get to before we get to our X factors?
Yeah, the only thing I really have is, this Cincinnati team is not one that's afraid to win the big one. I'll tell you that. They beat Arizona State last year. Very, very good team. Early. I understand that.
But also, do you know who started? Jeff Sims was starting for Arizona State in that game.
I understand that. But at the same time, I mean, the Cincinnati team is not one that this isn't a UTEP.
It's a veteran team. It's a veteran team.
This isn't a UTEP. This isn't an Akron. This isn't a Houston. And this isn't a Louisiana Tech, right? Like this is a actual football team. This isn't a walkthrough. Hey, let's see how many yards we can put up kind of game. You got to actually go out there and you got to win this game, right? There's no joke about this.
Yeah. So getting to our X factors, basically our three biggest reasons why Nebraska will win or lose this game. Starting it off, and we might have the same ones, but my biggest one is stopping the run. I think if you allow Sorsby to run and have success doing it, it'll open up lanes passing. And I think that's when you can hit the big shots. They have that speedster from Lindenwood that can kind of hurt you downfield. If you stop the run and you make them one-dimensional, I have a really good feeling about this game. So stopping the run has to be priority number one, and it's going to be a big question because of obviously all the new starters we have on the D-line. But I'm confident. But yeah, you have to do it.
Yeah, mine kind of plays into that as far as the quarterback goes, but it's getting to the quarterback, right? And so, not to say our secondary is bad, but their receiver group is very big. Our secondary is not very big, right? We have a bunch of smaller guys back there. We don't have any corners where it's that dude's a monster. Any safeties or really anything that's man, that guy, he's huge. It's really some smaller guys, but if you just sit back there and let him pick you apart, he will, right? He's got talent up there. But if you make him struggle, I think that's where, you force him in completions, you force him interceptions. And like you said, I mean, the Chief Stadium is not the loudest in the world because of how many it can hold, right? It's not a exponentially large stadium. What is it? 60, 70,000 probably?
Yeah, not super big.
Right. It's large or it's loud because of the way it's built. And so if we can make a stadium like Memorial seem loud, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that you can make a stadium like that one seem loud. And that's how those kind of that paired with getting to the quarterbacks, how those mistakes are going to happen.
Yeah. And kind of just the exact opposite of what you just said. My next X factor is protecting Raiola. I'm not super worried about Cincinnati's pass rush. Last year, they were 85th in sacks per game. But we did see what happened with Raiola when he got pressure in his face. You saw it in the Illinois game. You saw it in the Ohio State game. He does make those mistakes. And even if you assume that he's going to get better at that, which I do think he's going to get better. I do think the receiver is going to be open more often than not. You still want to keep him upright. And the last thing I want to mention is something that Zach has kind of already mentioned. With the zone coverage. Cincinnati ran more zone coverage than almost anybody in the country last year, over 90% zone coverage. And Dylan Raiola was top 10 in the country in completion percentage against zone coverage. So I really like it if they're going to run zone coverage as long as we can keep him upright and give him a clear vision. I think the receivers are going to get open. I think it's going to be pretty fun. I'll just say that.
Yep, I agree. My second one is going to be actually establishing the run, right? And so it's going to be one of the harder things to do because at the end of the day, like you can't just throw the ball all game. You know what I mean? I mean, to
Right.
open up that defense, you have to establish the run. Yes, Emmett Johnson's going to run the ball, but you got to find that running back too. It's a massive question mark on who that running back two is right now. Got to find that running back too, establish the run. I understand they have, an amazing D lineman in there, and they got some pretty good linebackers as well. But if you want to get this game opened up and, you want to wear down a defense like that, got to establish the run.
Yeah. And then my last one is starting fast. I think, similar to what I said about stopping the run, if you get up 2 scores early, force them to try and come behind, that's not what they're built to do. That's not what any Scott Satterfield team has really been built to do. If you force Brendan Sorsby to try to throw his way back in the game, it's just not going to be fun for him. It's not going to work. But if you allow them to get up a couple scores, they can just run the clock. They can eat at it. That's where they want to be. So you have to start fast. If you don't get the ball first, 3 and out, score. If you do get the ball first, go down the field, score, 3 and out, score again. If you go up by 2 scores, I'm not going to say the game's over, but I would feel very good going forward.
Yeah, my final one is going to be the little things. Mostly coming, special teams, but also, just the little things, stopping them in the red zone. Cincinnati was 1-5 in one-score games last year, right? And so a lot like us as far as those one-score games. But the only way I do that is win the little moments, right? And I think this is one where, you kind of prove like, hey, the old days are behind us. This one kind of with Michigan, Minnesota, but it all starts here, right? Like you can't win the Michigan game by 1 score if you don't win the Cincinnati game. You can't win the Minnesota game if you don't win the Cincinnati game. Like it all starts at the Cincinnati game, winning the little ones and showing that this really is a different team.
Yeah. So getting into our predictions, I'll go first. As you can probably tell, I'm not very high on the Cincinnati team. I know that they're talented. I know that they can cause some problems, but I'm very confident going into this game. And I think Nebraska comes out in front of a nearly 100% Nebraska crowd, in front of a sold-out level crowd, and I think they score early, and I think they score often. I think Nebraska is just going to go at them. I don't think they're going to slow down. I think Cincinnati scores, single digits in the first half, maybe scores late to make it double digits. I think Nebraska runs, all game. I don't think it's an issue for Nebraska's offense all game. I think Nebraska wins 38-10. I know a lot of people are talking about this is going to be a close game. This is going to be a 1-score game. I get it. I get Cincinnati has some talent. I get it. Nebraska has a lot of unproven things, but this is a Big Ten team that, in my opinion, should be competing for, close to a playoff spot all year. Big 12 teams, especially Big 12 teams that aren't on the upper half of the league, should not be an issue for Nebraska. So I think Nebraska comes out. I think they come out guns blazing. Nebraska, Matt Rule has never lost a season opener in year 3, including beating Penn State with Temple in year 3. I think they're going to come out hot. I think they're going to limit their mistakes, and I think they're going to have a lot of fun. Nebraska covers the spread, starts off the season with a big statement. Dylan Raiola going to be on Heisman watch list. Nebraska hype at an all-time high.
Yeah, so my score prediction is definitely not a 1-score game, right? But it's a little lower scoring than yours. I think it looks a lot like the Colorado game, where it kind of came out hot, right? I mean, really, really hot. But then kind of ran the ball, kind of soaked the lead. Maybe looked a little messy here and there just because we're so early into it. With this being the first game, not in our home environment, still a lot of question marks. I'm gonna go ahead and say 31-14. Be the final score here. I think there's a lot of unprovens out there that are going to hold us back from getting to that 38 mark, and then I think maybe Cincinnati pops a couple big ones off that catch us. But I think this is where we learn how to reel it back in, relax. It's not over. One thing you've seen over the last few years is Nebraska can get up, but as soon as one thing goes wrong, it seems like the whole pyramid kind of collapses. on us. I think this is one thing where it's like, hey, one thing might have went wrong, but that's okay. We're going to go out there and we're going to fix it. And so I think 31-14 is going to be mine.
Yeah, definitely. So you got anything else before we sign it off? It's going to be a big one.
Nope.
All right, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, leave a like, go to all the socials in the description, as well as where you're going to get your extra short form content. But make sure you comment down below your score prediction, and we will see you guys next time. Go Big Red.